Hey everyone, we'll get started real soon. Great to see everyone joining us today. Well, that seems like a natural lead into the beginning. Welcome in, everybody. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, and community. And I pay my respect to them, their elders past, and to elders past, present, and emerging for our colleagues over in Australia. And also over here in New Zealand, in recognition that we are a binational team. Google also acknowledges Māori as tangata whenua, the original custodians and Te Tiriti o Waitangi, partners of Aotearoa New Zealand. We respect this history to our Māori, the Māori worldview, and commit to elevating the voices and experiences of Māori and communities through people's products, platforms, and people. So welcome in today to a session looking at Gemini. I thought I'd start by introducing our Australia, New Zealand and APAC and our partially global team as well. These faces you may be familiar with. There's me smack bang in the middle. So that is our team that look after both our partners, our schools, our research, and also our engineering team as well. And also today we are welcoming two special guest stars. We're welcoming Andrew Corney and Danny Bedingfield. Would you guys just like to jump in and introduce yourselves? I'll let you go first, Andrew.
Yeah, kia ora koutou katoa. Delighted to be here on the call with you all. Really good start to the week yesterday with all the new features in Classroom. And yeah, happy to share how I've used Gemini with some students in our little school down in Queenstown, New Zealand.
All right, thanks, Andrew. And Danny, over to you. Introduce yourself.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you so much for having me on board, and yeah, excited as well for the content of this webinar, but also to share, I guess, a little bit of insights as I work across a number of different schools, things that I've been picking up along the way as well. So hopefully that'll be useful to people.
Excellent, thanks very much, team. And both these guys are part of our champions community, so it's great to have you here supporting me. So let's kick on in with a bit of a beginning. Look at our Google's commitment to helping schools transform teaching and learning, or support teaching and learning as well. So enabling every education leader, empowering every educator, equipping every student, and yesterday we covered this, evolving every day. And obviously in the AI space, the evolve every day is definitely where we're at the moment. Everything is changing very, very quickly. So thinking about this, Google for Education brings the best of Google to education to help you transform teaching and learning. And also the big point here is that we have a very large AI team that brings all the best of Google AI into your education tools as well. So today, as I said, we're going to focus on Gemini in education. So this is specifically looking at how you can use Gemini, the different versions of Gemini, which I'll outline in a moment, in your teaching and learning to support you, to try and help with that additional cognitive load that teachers have, the fact that it is very, very busy in the classroom, and how can we do a bit to help out in that way. So our agenda for today is we're going to look at what are some use cases, some examples of use of Gemini. We're going to have a look at the Google Advantage, so what's built into the background for you, some use cases and examples, and of course our special guests that we're going to have a look at as well. So jumping in. So as we begin, I'd like to outline that there are two versions of Gemini that we're going to be talking about today. The one on the left-hand side, let me grab my laser pointer. So the left-hand side one here, which is available for people 13 and above, is our free of charge tool. So the Gemini app, we call it, or the chat experience, which is available at gemini.google.com. Now that needs to be enabled by your admin. You can also get it in your Gmail. If you are a Google trainer and you've got a trainer account, you can get it in there. But there is the Gemini app at gemini.google.com, and we'll see some examples of use of that today. There is also Notebook LM. We're not going to touch on Notebook LM today. I'm going to leave that to probably Thursday's session. Notebook LM is an absolutely amazing tool, and so I could probably spend hours talking about that, but I won't look at that today. If you haven't seen Notebook LM, do have a look at that as a way of creating your own AI repository of information. On the right-hand side over here is our paid version of Gemini, Gemini inside of Workspace. Now, what that gives you is access to the Gemini app, so the left-hand side one, but the advanced version of it as well. Rob, it's not 13 plus at the moment, is my official answer to that one. So Gemini gives you Gemini Advanced, which has a much more capable model. It gives you access to creating custom gems, which are available for people who have Gemini for Workspace licensing. We have just released something called Notebook LM Plus. Now, if you have the Gemini license, it does also give you some additional features inside of Notebook LM. Also with that license, it gives you access to Gemini in Gmail, Classroom, Docs, Slides, Sheets, Drive, Meet, and Chat as well. And I'll show you what that looks like. So the one Gemini for Workspace license gives you access to all those things on the right-hand side. It also gives you access to Gemini in Classroom, that we had a look at some of the features yesterday. So the paid part is on the right, the free part, or the free of charge part, is on the left, and we'll call that out as we go through and look at each of these features today. So I just wanted to start off and make those super clear. Now, when we're looking at Gemini, on the left-hand side is how you would find Gemini, the chat experience, the free one, the no charge one. So that's sitting down here. I just click on my waffle. This is my school account here, and Gemini sits down there. On the right-hand side is if you have a Gemini paid license, you'll see this Gemini pops up right along your top bar. And then you can see this screenshot here is from Gemini on my drive. So the right-hand side one is an example of what you'd see with the Gemini paid version. The left-hand side is that Gemini chat, or the free of charge one. So let's have a little look at some examples of how it's being used. So if you're looking at Gemini and Docs, this is how you can ask it to update existing content, refine content, rewrite content, create alternative versions of your class content as well. So this is with that Gemini for Workspace. This is a little look at Gemini in Classroom. So it gives you things like generating lesson plans, customizing by a target level, refining and editing, personalizing lesson plans, suggestions for differentiation. And a lot of these are great for those first steps or your first draft of something. Now, I'm not going to suggest that we're going to outsource lesson planning to an AI, but I suggest it's a really, really great tool for starting you off, for helping you, for extending some stuff as well. Looking at, and again, this is in the Gemini for Workspace. So inside of your email, an instant summary of long documents, an instant summary of email threads. If you go away from your desk and you come back and you've got a great big long email thread, get Gemini to summarize it for you. Provide insights about files in your drive. Ask if you have a piece of research in a PDF, ask Gemini to summarize it, and catch up what you missed in Meet. You can actually jump into Gemini and get a summary of the Meet. And you'll see after this call, in the calendar invitation will appear a summary, because I've asked Gemini to summarize this Meet call for me. You can see in the top right, there is a little note-taking pencil. So Gemini is recording and collating all the information from today's meeting for me. Now, jumping forward to the next one, looking at Notebook LM. So this is a quick look at Notebook LM. Notebook LM has a whole pile of things I've uploaded here. I then have asked it some questions, and it can do things like create an audio overview or almost like a podcast. I can add some notes, I can ask questions. So Notebook LM, which is no cost, it's available for people 18 plus, so your teachers can grab this, or if you're a secondary school, perhaps your highest age students can grab it. It's a way of using your own documents, and then you can ask it questions just like you would with Gemini. So powered by Gemini, only looking at what you upload to it. But I'll look at that a bit more in Thursday's session. Gemini inside of Google Classroom again, tailoring quizzes, checking for student understanding, reformatting text pieces as well. This is a little GIF showing you it generating a quiz. So that's with your Gemini and Workspace. Refining messages inside of email. Fantastic for me, this one. Type an email, highlight it, get Gemini to then refine my email, so it'll make it sound more professional. I might say make it sound more focused. So it's a way to help me refine what I would like to say if I need help with that, and often I do. Next one we'll have a look at is a little look at how you can differentiate your course materials. What we have here is the doc. You'll see we have the help me write prompt here. Highlight what you've got and ask it to refine what you're talking about. And some examples there on the left-hand side. Another little look at Notebook LM. You can also create what are called audio overviews. I'll just let this one.
You know that iconic image of Buzz Aldrin on the moon? Well, today we're going beyond just the familiar snapshots and diving deep into the personal experiences of the people who made those missions possible.
Yeah, it's really going behind the curtain of space exploration history. Looks like we have a caller. What's on your mind?
Hey, tell me a little more about John Glenn.
Great question. John Glenn, of course, was a monumental figure. He was the first American to orbit.
So this is an example of an audio overview inside of Notebook LM. Some information has been uploaded to Notebook LM. We've asked our AI hosts to create an audio overview. They have a discussion about the information that's there. Now, the last little piece you saw there was the ability to actually interject a question and ask the hosts, as we're calling them, a question about that. So that's audio overviews in Notebook LM. That is available free of charge as well. So have a look at Notebook LM if you haven't
You know that
seen
iconic image.
I'm going to jump forward to the next one. Now, this is a look at the what we call the Gemini chat experience, or the no-cost one. So you can drop a prompt in there and then get some information back as well. I will have a little look at some use cases for that in a moment, and there are a couple of points around this as well. So that's what the Gemini chat experience looks like. You'll notice also in here, there is the option to upload a picture, to use your voice, and then to send off that prompt. So there are multi modes of input inside of Gemini as well. Now, inside of slides, you can also create images. So this is in the Gemini for Workspace. So just create an image with Gemini right inside of your slides with different styles as well. Original images, no copyright on them. So fantastic for educators who want that specific image for something they are looking at. It may be that someone has created a presentation about something and you need that special image that's going to take you forever to find it. This is a way that you can achieve that. Now that we have Gemini, the chatbot, the free version, the Gemini chat, available for 13+, there is also a way for students to use this as well. So creating practice materials, creating guided quizzes that walk you through some questions, asking some questions of data by using an extension that links with the data commons. So you can actually go at data commons and it will link your Gemini to a whole lot of data that has been provided for it. So students can ask Gemini to give feedback on their learning and work through something as an assistant, if you like. Now, the 13+ experience is different than the 18+ experience. When students first use it, they'll see a video about how to use generative AI. They'll also have some information about how to stay safe. Also, there are some guardrails in place where if they ask things that are not appropriate for an under 18, they will be given that information straight back. So for instance, in New Zealand, if they were asking what's the best way to buy alcohol, it will say, I'm sorry, you can't do that. I can't give you information about that because you're under the age. So there are guardrails in place for this one, and I can show you some places you can find some more information about that as we go through. Now, when we have a little example of some ways that Gemini can be used. So this is kind of a look at a leader's day, if you like. So you're behind in your emails, ask Gemini to summarize your emails for me. You're leading a meeting that's going to start soon, create a draft schedule inside of Sheets. You want to prepare for a brainstorm, use the Gemini chat experience to generate a list of ideas. Using Gemini in images in slides, save you time doing that internet search for it. You're presenting your work in the meeting, use Meet, present it like we're doing here, and get Gemini to take notes for you. The meeting's done, you want to follow up the next steps, grab your notes and ask Gemini to draft them up, choose some next steps, pick out some themes that were covered in the meeting. So those are some examples for an education leader. Having a look at a teacher, some class prep, update your existing lessons, update your existing resources. Ask Gemini to critique some writing samples. Now, the really nice piece about this is when you're using Gemini in an education account, nothing goes in to train the model. Your data doesn't go anywhere, it stays private with you. So you can put in some writing and it's not going to go into the model. 11:30, you've got your third period there. Re-level some homework assignments for your more able students, or make them more simple for your less able students, or make them shorter or bullet point them. Sixth period, ask it to explain a concept in a new way. You've got a staff meeting, you want to summarize your meeting notes. Professional development, make an outline for a professional development, and I'll show you an example of this soon. Then of course, we've got some grading and lesson planning in the evening as well. So some examples of some ways that Gemini can be used. And then for the student one, deepening your understanding, getting feedback on your work, creating practice questions is a really great one. And then if you have an idea, identify some more themes in this brainstorm and research one over here. So that is for your 13+ students. Remembering that needs to be switched on. It is off by default. Okay, so we have a look at this in the next little section called the Google Advantage. We have obviously been doing AI for a very, very long time. right back from the beginning when we started to put tools into Google for Education. Things like chart suggestions. When you highlight some data in your chart, it's going to suggest highlight some data in your sheet, it's going to suggest what sort of chart you want to create. Smart replies, formula accelerations, originality reports, noise cancellation, right the way up to 2023-24, when we released Gemini for Workspace, the Gemini app, and of course last year, Google Vids, which has Gemini built into that as well. So if you have a Gemini license, a Gemini for Workspace license, you get access to the advanced version of Vids. Vids is available in Education Plus, but Gemini gives you access to a whole lot of additional stuff inside of Vids as well. So we own our entire tech stack, everything from the infrastructure all the way up to the software, the models, and the devices. So we are end to end. You are staying inside of the Google tech stack. You're not going out to different places to use these tools. We have our AI principles, of course. Number 2 and 3, super important, and avoid creating or reinforcing bias and being built and tested for safety. And number 4, it is accountable to our team of people. We can give feedback. There are guardrails in there. It is very much, we are watching very closely how the models work, and it is available for you to give feedback on as well. So we're committed to building AI that protects personal information and delivers trustworthy content and information. So with that teen one we're talking about here, there is a teen onboarding guide and built-in protections. We've partnered with learning science experts to help create resources. There are advanced safeguards for students, and AI always keeps teachers in the loop. You can always give feedback. We have a range of different groups that are giving us feedback on these, on all our tools. So this is an example of the responsible teen experience for Gemini. So the question was how to buy alcohol, and then this is a United States example here, with some flags, and also not giving the information, but giving some information that is not appropriate for someone of their age. We have the AI literacy video that the students see when they first use it, which was endorsed by Connect Safely and Family Online Safety, and was also created with a range of consultants in the education space as well. Really important. Gemini Education is covered under the Google Workspace for Education Terms of Service. The no-cost Gemini is also covered for this when you have Education Plus. Your data is not used to train the AI or the large language models. It's not shared. We don't use your customer data for advertising. You own and control your data, and you can delete it all. All customer data is encrypted at rest and also in transit. And our privacy practices are audited against international standards. So your HIPAAs and FERPAs, and there are a bunch of ISO certifications as well. Now with the Gemini app that we're looking at, there is no persistent local data. There's no thick app you have to download. There is no on-premises infrastructure needed. So these are 3 really important pieces about your data. So let's have a couple of quick run-throughs before I jump into a look at some ways I've used the Gemini chat, and then we'll pass over to our 2 special guest stars. So this is a look at Gemini in Classroom, accelerate lesson planning, create a lesson hook, create a quiz, or re-level a text. And I went through that in yesterday's introduction to Classroom. Inside of Google Docs with that Workspace license, they help me write prompt sits inside there for you. So summarizing, personalizing, brainstorming, or just getting started with that blank page. Inside of Slides, create a presentation, customize a presentation, make a concept a bit more simple by generating a visual. Inside of Sheets, we have the sidebar down there on the right. So help me create something, and it could be an outline, it could be some formula, it could be to help you to do a day planning, as you can see there. And the formulas inside of Sheets are super helpful for me. Then looking at the Gemini chat experience, which we'll jump into in just a moment. All right, so having a look at Gemini chat, the chat experience, the one that is the no-cost option, really important. so this is from my school account. Now I can see here that there is this really important little shield down there. That shield shows me that I have my data protections built in because I'm using my school account. So really, really important. You'll also see here there is the ability to upload an image to ask it questions of, and also the microphone there, so I can speak my prompt. So multi-modes of input inside of Gemini Chat. So real quick run-throughs of some things I've used this for. So the prompt here is create a table of time differences of 25 world capitals from Perth, Australia. And the Gemini, so this is in the no-cost version of Gemini that we're talking about here. All these ones are, I'm going to have a look at. Here is the table here, and you notice at the bottom I can click a button and I can export that straight to Sheets. So the Gemini chat experience is integrated with the rest of your tools. You can flick it straight out to Sheets. There's no copying and pasting and you lose all your layout. Just click that little button, flick it straight out to Sheets. So this is a really great use case for if I was in a geography class. This is my looking at time zones if I'm doing maths. This could be some nice data as well. Oh, look at the next one. Create me a lesson plan on the topic of sponsorship and sport with a 10-question quiz and a student provocation statement to spark a group discussion. Now then it's given me my lesson plan there as my starting point, and you notice on this one, I can then export that out to docs. So by going to the bottom, clicking on this share, I can either send it to Gmail or I can send it to docs. So again, this is there to make that next step super, super simple. This is giving Gemini a persona. Act as the lead character in the book The Beach and explain how your feelings change throughout the book. Use specific locations and time references. So Gemini here is writing in the first person as the lead character in the book The Beach. Now, as it goes through this prompt, it talks about how the feelings change as they go through. So then I've said, yeah, but how did you first feel when you got to the beach? When I first got to the beach, it was like stumbling on a hidden paradise. So this is speaking in the first person based on the character in that book. So this is one of those ones where I showed you an example of if we got our workspace, a Gemini workspace license, a Gemini for Education license, then I could have done this directly in Sheets. If I don't have that, I can ask it to create me an outline for professional development. Once I've got that outline, then I can simply go down here and click Export to Sheets. It's going to fire it out to Sheets for me. So I've been really specific in this, saying I want a table of sessions over 2 days, 1 hour in length, a beginner and an advanced stream, and what the aim is, and include a 30-minute morning tea break and 45-minute lunch break. So that has provided me the draft of a 2-day PD session straight away, saving me a bit of time, giving me some spurs of information. Now I'm going to get a little bit deep in geography nerd space, because being an ex-geography teacher, I love my maps. I love Google Earth. This is a really cool one I saw shared recently. So this is creating a CSV file that can be incorporated into Google My Maps. And what it's asking for is some locations in the American Revolutionary War. And rather than just giving me a whole lot of information about that, I've created a CSV that can then be sent out to Google My Maps and then opened in Google Earth. And what it creates for me is this here. So it's created a CSV file. I've imported that into My Maps, and it then has, you see when I click on a pin here, what it does is it has all the information about that battle there. Now, I've also done that with beaches of the world. So it is a way that we can create some really amazing resources. So this is a CSV into My Maps. Last one, create a Google Sheets file that can be incorporated into My Maps. This is the beaches one here. So it has created locations of famous beaches, what they're famous for as well. So a couple of really cool little use cases you can use it for here. Last one I want to look at is using Gemini to summarize a report. This is a report on AI in education in New Zealand. I've asked it to read that PDF because it's a PDF that's posted online, and to summarize it into 10 bullet points. And then can you tell me the positive aspects as outlined by the report? And you can see down here is what Gemini has come back based on that published report. So those are a couple of examples of how I've used the Gemini chat experience, the no-cost one, and I've seen it used across different schools as well. What I'll do now is I'll pass over to our guests, because I've just done a whole lot of talking, give you a break from my voice, and I'll pass you over to Andrew Corney. Andrew, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Now, crikey, my first go at co-hosting, and I hope I get this right. So do I take over your screen? Is that right, Steve?
Yep,
Take
do
over the
that.
presentation?
Yep. You can either do that, or if you want to do that, or you can, if you just on your little chat screen, if you hover over, sorry, your Meet screen, if you hover in the bottom right left-hand corner, you'll see a couple of arrows. You might be able to make it go forward and backwards that way.
Right, no, I think we're all
Here we go.
good.
Take over. Perfect.
Fantastic. Great feature of Meet. Well, yeah, thanks so much for the invitation. Great to share how I've been using Gemini and AI in a little school called Liga Leadership Academy down in Queenstown. So we're a small secondary school, and yeah, trying to be really future focused. So trying to be AI first. And I think it's important to when you're presenting or sharing about AI with students, to put it in the framework. It's not just about using the tools. And this is a framework from some New Zealand researchers. And the thing that I like about this is, there's the different parts of how to use AI. So it's not just about the skill and how it works, but there's also about the ethical issues, the impacts, etc., and also about the different levels, whether a student can know and understand, whether they can apply, and that those higher levels of evaluate and beyond. And I think when using Gemini, it's important to think of all those other AI tools that are out there. And I think Gemini is a great example of being under manual control. And Rebecca Rose does a good example of, manual versus automatic types of AI uses. Automatic transmission in a car, you just put it into drive and off you go. And a lot of those tools like Magic School or School AI have come with, if you like, pre-built prompts, like take on this persona of a character or give me feedback on the writing. But I think if you can teach students about the manual use of AI in a chatbot like Gemini, then they begin to understand, maybe what some of those prompts behind those automatic tools look like. And again, Gemini's preferred one we use in our school because of those guardrails that Steve talked about earlier, data protection. We can use it for our 13+ learners, but tricky for our 12-year-olds. And really supported by an awesome range of Google resources, in particular, just a shout out for that AI Educators course from Google. It's a really comprehensive online course that, I'd encourage your teachers to engage in. So you've already heard of some uses of Gemini. What I found useful was just what all the different parts do. So just a quick whiz around the Gemini map. So the first one probably in the top left about resetting the chat. So as you go through a prompt, it narrows down further and further in terms of the responses that you're getting. So if you're going to go on a tangent or ask a new question, always good to reset that chat. Obviously, you can edit your prompt. If you're not happy with the initial response, go back and edit the prompt. And then those buttons down the bottom there. And I think in that 3 dots, the check with search, Gemini's got better and better at verifying where it's got the information from. And in those 3 dots is a double check response, and it will show you which sections of the response have come from which websites. So really powerful in terms of getting students to investigate authenticity and bias and things like that. Obviously, you can get it to regenerate a response if you want some different responses. Steve's already showed that about sharing via doc or email. I noticed that recently the share via link has popped up, so that's quite a useful tool as well. And I'm not sure if it's in Gemini. It looks like it's in Gemini just standard. So that's a way you can share a whole chat conversation, if you like, with your students to show them how you've been using that AI interface. Probably the one that I'd most want to highlight is about how you can fine-tune responses. And if I just pull out this little pop-up here, then you can highlight part of the response and get Gemini to just change that part of the response, expand it, delete it altogether, or remove it. So some really great tools in editing a response that Gemini gives you. And then right down the bottom, obviously the free version, you can upload files images, into your prompt, so to get some prompting done on images. But in the advanced version, you've also got the ability to add any file, and you can also link it to your Google Drive. So you can go and search for a Drive file and use a prompt based on that. And lastly, Gem Manager. So that's in the advanced version as well. And that's like customized versions of Gemini. And there's a whole rabbit hole you can dive down to in terms of using Gem Manager. I just thought I'd share with you in the brief bit of time that I've got. So yeah, those are the points that I've just covered with that Gemini map. There's that little drop-down menu that you can, it's a right-click contextual menu when you get those responses, and there's the options that you've got. So that's a great new feature that's come out recently. And just lastly, I just want to show you some of the ways or the activities that I've used with students to develop their AI skills. Now I am going to, I'm going to switch to this tab here. So on this link here, and I'll share that in the chat when I'm finished and Danny takes over, it's just a whole bunch of resources that I've used. I have been adding to this AI prompt guide for students. So it's just a Google Doc and starts with just some basic information about use of AI and what it can be used for, a bit of a prompt writing guide, and I know Danny's going to talk about that. Some considerations for use. We try and signal to the students about when AI use is welcome and when it's not. So be real clear on when we do want students to use, and if they're not sure, we usually have this orange flag as well. We really want students to document how they're using AI and how they reference it. And then I just give some examples of prompts that they can just copy and paste and type in. And the first lot of prompts is all about understanding generative AI. So hallucination, age limits, why they exist. So trying to get that idea of, well, let's AI answer some of those questions we have about AI. Yeah, as I said, talk about prompt engineering, appropriate use, that literacy framework. The sort of second to last thing I want to show you is this task I developed about AI bingo. So, you know, bingo board, you want to try and complete a line across or diagonal or up and down. And these are just some challenges that students can do to grow their skill in prompting with AI. So, you know, create music that that people want to dance to, create a sea shanty, explain in the style of Taylor Swift. So some things that hopefully kids find engaging. And I've got some examples here. So this challenge here was create an image of two historical characters that have never met before. A comic book, an image of a comic book hero with an unusual superpower. So I think he's got the ability to destroy trash. This person's got a fish head. This one was about a social media influencer discussing privacy concerns, a social media influencer talking about safety online, an image about, you know, not letting AI steal your voice. An animal that's never been seen before. So, you know, these are quite playful type of prompts that the kids are usually engaged in it. And important with this activity is I want the students to show me their prompt and that it meets those prompt criteria that we talk about. So whatever framework you use to help learners structure their prompt, you want to see students use that, you know, in terms of if does it have a persona, does it give an example, etc., etc. And the last thing I'll share with you, and I've just played around with this in the last activity project that my learners did at the end of the year, which was about, you know, rather than them writing a reflection on how they did in the project, we had just a conversation. And I just tried using voice typing to record the conversation just in Google Docs. So you can see that there's this large chunk of text with no punctuation, doesn't differentiate who's speaking. But with this prompt here, Gemini was able to differentiate who was talking, what the gist of the conversation was, and it was able to output this pretty accurate feedback. So a real time saver, and then again, that ability to discuss the accuracy of that output with the learner. Oh, look, I noticed it mentioned, the AI output mentioned this, but we didn't talk about that. Isn't that interesting? So I think that's a really useful use of AI to accelerate those learner discussions. And then, look, lastly, just before I hand over to Danny, if you haven't seen this, so this is Google's released this multimodal AI. So if you've ever seen that video from Khan Academy, Sal Khan's showing his son how he's interacting with a screen and doing some trigonometry. So we've got a version here that's free to use and play around with. So yeah, really encourage you to dive into that. And yeah, I'll share those links in the chat now. But yeah, thanks for letting me have on being on board in this presentation. And I think Danny, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. That's awesome sharing, and thanks for sharing those resources as well. You've obviously spent a lot of time collecting. So thanks for your time, and thanks for your perspective on this and how you're using it with your learners. Awesome. Let's pass it over to you, Danny.
Awesome. Hey, that's awesome, Andrew. Some great resources and stuff there. And I didn't realise as well that we can now do that, just a small chunk of the response in Gemini. That's amazing. That's really awesome. Okay, I'm just trying to play around with my mouse is playing up here. Here we go. 1 second. Where's my, there we go. With my finger apparently. Okay.
Thanks for that, Andrew. So Andrew's dropped in the link to his resources. Also, I dropped in the link to the AI for Educators course that Andrew mentioned in his. So have a look in the chat, grab those 2 links, and we'll make sure those are available for you after as well.
Fantastic.
Cool. Thanks, Danny.
Awesome. Hey, so just a few things from me. As Andrew pointed out before, I love to talk a little bit about this idea of prompting, and I totally agree with what Andrew is saying around using some of those manual or auto transmission style tools. I think it's really important that us as educators and also our students are looking at diving into how we can actually manipulate these tools. We have no idea what they're going to look like in a year, 2 years, 3 years. You know, we really are still in kind of generation 1. So part of that that training that I think Andrew and Steve were talking about and posted that link in the chat before, part of that training model in Gemini, it actually gives you out resources. And one I found really useful was this prompting guide that came up as part of that training course. And it talks about some different ways of getting the best out of your prompts. And there's a number of different prompting models that I've played with, but this is very similar to a lot of them around the idea of having, I guess, a persona, giving the AI model, putting it straight into role, I think is what I would put it as. You know, you are an educator in Australia, or you are an educator in New Zealand. I think just straight away puts the bot into a frame of mind that helps you get a better response. Obviously, the task is really key, getting across exactly what you want it to actually create, giving it kind of context around whether you want to relate to the Australian curriculum or the New Zealand curriculum, or what particular subjects and focus you want it to have. And then, of course, like Steve pointed out before, do you want this back as a spreadsheet? Do you want this back as an CSV file? Do you want this back in bullet points? Do you want this in a table? There's lots of different ways of getting that content the way you want it as well. So an example I thought I'd pop out here. You are a motivated and highly experienced primary school teacher in Aotearoa, New Zealand. You are teaching a highly engaging descriptive writing unit, and so therefore write a descriptive story for my Year 6 class on visiting the Wellington Zoo. When some tigers escape and the P Waka Waka, which is our fantails here in New Zealand, class saves the day. I've seen a lot of classes called P Waka Waka. Use lots of great adverbs in a beginning, middle and end, and just some context. The teacher is Mr. Bedingfield. So what I might do is see if I can just flick out here now, present something else, and just do a little bit of a live demo. I'll see if it's going to let me work with that. It's been a bit slow at the moment. Here we go. All right, let's go for my... Excuse me while my computer decides to freeze up. Here we go. There we go. Gemini and share. There we go. All right, so I can now hopefully pop over to that. And so what I've done is just prepared a couple of prompts here. And I think, I'm not sure if people know, but I'm on a Chromebook at the moment. And if I've copied something, rather than doing the Control V to paste, if I use my Do Everything button, my little microscope there, and use that and V, it'll actually bring up a list of all the things that I have copied in the past. And so just so happily, I've got those ready because I'm a terrible typer. So I've got those ready to go straight away. So there's that prompt I just sort of read out. And in the couple of times I've tried this out, it's done a pretty cool, engaging story around the tigers escaping from the zoo, and how the Waka Waka class can save the day, with my name in there as the teacher as well, which I think is really awesome. We've heard already today about all the great things you can do with NAS now with the check, and being able to share that directly to docs and so on as well. And obviously highlight little parts there. That's what Andrew was just talking about there, being able to edit those little bits. That's awesome. And then what I would do then is want to be able to sort of follow up those prompts and maybe say, okay, well, that's great. I love the story. Now, can you turn this into what we call a closed reading activity, where you remove some of those adverbs and make an activity up for my students? And I find it generally does a pretty good job of this as well. So this is, I guess, creating that content and then being able to go further and dive deeper by creating the content for your students as well. And then I would follow up with that one there about being able to then create a cartoon image of the tigers. Still working on that one there. Create a cartoon of the tigers, exiting the enclosure. That may take a minute or so, so I might just leave that one for now. But that's pretty cool. Pretty cool way of doing it. I'm still chugging away there, but I'll let it go. All right, and I'll just share back. There we go. Yeah, so that's my idea of, really fleshing out those prompts. In my experience, the extra effort you put into writing a slightly longer, prompt is always going to pay off in the outcomes, especially when you give it context and make sure you're giving it a real solid sort of task or thing to do. The other thing I would say about prompting is, over my 18 months to 24 months now of really delving into this, it's come to my attention that not necessarily formatting out a really massive prompt is always going to be best. Sometimes I think this idea of chain of thought prompting, which is kind of what I did a moment ago, actually works out better. So start high level. I need to teach this particular subject to my students. In the past, they've never been engaged. They've never been interested. Give me some ideas of how I can teach this topic in a more engaging way. And then as the bot sort of starts giving you ideas, you take some of those and you work with it. Okay, that's great. Now perhaps write me a unit plan based on that. Now perhaps write me some more detailed lesson plans, because the reliever's going to be taking the class. Now create me some assessments. Now give me some inclusive learning ways I can involve my dyslexic students, or the universal design for learning. Really kind of start high level, and then just get the bot to really help you drill in further and further. And I find that to be an excellent way. If I am looking for a longer term, or a lots of different things on one subject, I find that chain of thought prompting works extremely well. I was going to sort of not do this, because I heard Steve say that he's going to do a lot more on Notebook LM later on, but he had a little example of this. I'll just maybe play a minute of it if I can. This is just my example of the interactive mode of Notebook LM. So this is the audio overview, but then being able to interrupt it. Now, I'm over a lot of different AI tools. This is by far the most amazing one to me. This is gone next level. I think this is probably breaking into maybe next generation of AIs, I reckon. But let's see if this will play for me. Hopefully it will. I haven't loaded it up.
For sure.
That's a theme throughout the book.
Oh, absolutely.
Challenging assumptions.
Yeah, I mean, think about Captain Ahab. He's the driving force of the Pequod.
Right.
And you sense this monomania in him.
Yeah, his obsession with revenge.
Right.
Against the white whale that took his leg.
Yeah, and his entrance on, oh, wait, someone wants to join. Hey, go for it.
How did he actually lose his leg? I don't understand.
Well, that's a great question, and it's totally understandable why you'd be a little confused.
Yeah, the book kind of drops hints, but doesn't give a full account at first.
Okay, let's unpack this so you're...
Yeah, so that just really blows my mind. It's incredible. There's a little bit of a pause there at the moment, but you can really see the amazing potential for students of being able to have, your sources, the things that you're providing, because are correct and are going to help them with their particular subject. Your sources in Notebook LM, the audio overview to really involve all students without having to have a high reading ability, and then being able to stop it in the middle of it as if it was a teacher, you know, that rude interruption, not even raising my hand, and essentially get it to respond to some of my questions right then and there. It's next level. It's amazing. And I strongly urge you to come along to Steve's recap or look at Notebook LM later on the week, because it is an amazing tool. And I'll leave you there, Steve. Thank you very much for having me on board.
Awesome, thanks, Danny. Hey, I love the fact that you kind of broke down the prompting for everyone to understand. Some great use cases that you've got of your own there, and yeah, that last little feature of Notebook LM, yeah, just blows my mind every time I play with it. So thanks very much for showing it and sharing us all that stuff there. So I will just quickly be very rude and kick you off and take over again with exactly the same page that you've got up here as well. So here we go. So a really fantastic resource that is available for you is this slide deck with 30 ways to use Gemini in education. Now, lots of the use cases we've seen today are outlined in here with a little bit more of how to. So if you go to bit.ly/30 Gemini, that is where you'll find this resource. So I'll just quickly drop that into the chat now. So it's bit.ly/30 Gemini will take you to some slides that are publicly available. And if you have a Gemini license already, this will show you how you can get the best out of it. If you haven't, it will show you what's available and also some other uses of Gemini chat as well. So really great resource that's available for you to support your use of AI in education. All right. I highlighted this as well yesterday. This is our Education Navigator page, which is a home for a whole lot of fantastic resources for educators. You can also sign up to get regular updates into your inbox, or find resources that are available to you. That short link there, bit.ly/edu resource finder, is where you can go to that site and get a whole lot of support with a whole lot of resources for you. So the Education Navigator is a new resource available for you to find stuff to help you. Okay, that brings us to the end of today, just about on time. It's really hard to talk about all these amazing tools and keep it to a really, really short time. So thank you, Danny and Andrew, for sharing your resources really beautifully. And thanks to everyone who's joined us today. Now, we would love some feedback from you on this webinar series. So there is a QR code that I've made from Chrome direct there. Or you can also jump into bit.ly BTS webinar 25 to give us some feedback. As part of the feedback, you can also let us know if there's something from this week of webinars you'd like to know more about, because we have tried to keep these to about 45 to 50 minutes. So we give you that good overview. But if there's something you'd like to know more about, we'll look at running some follow-ups as well through the next 2 terms of school. So this week, we've got webinars every day. You see them back on the registration site you went to. So if you can take some time to give us some feedback on bit.ly BTS webinar 25, we'd love to know how you found all the topics we covered today. Back on our registration site where you registered for this, once we've processed them, you'll find the recordings for these and the resources. So jump back to that. You'll also see in the calendar invitation, you'll see the summary that Gemini has taken for us as well. So that's us, folks. Thanks very much for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your holidays. You have definitely deserved them. Hopefully you can get out and recharge yourself outside with some lovely fresh air. Now, where I'm sitting in Auckland at the moment, that's not particularly hopeful because this weird stuff is falling from the sky that we haven't seen for a while. So hopefully everyone can get out and refresh. Thanks very much for your time. I will stop the recording now, so you can feel free to leave once you've given us some feedback. Obviously, if you want to ask any questions, you can definitely do that. So I'll switch off the recording now, say thank you very much. Ka kite ao no, folks. Thank you for your time today.